Thanks for reminding this. Yeah. Okay, now you can start.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to SIG Node. It's October 27th. Happy to see everybody here. We have a lot of PRs coming in. We have many newcomers, and thank you everybody mentoring people to start contributing to SIG Node. It's very exciting. We have, let me open it. Somehow it got closed. We have 24 PRs created this week, and it's quite high number, and some of them was just opened by mistake or some like new contributors, so they got closed almost immediately. But we still merged less than we created, so we still not reviewing PRs fast enough. Like pace of creation is much higher. I hope that we will have more reviewers from Google. We are trying to onboard more people to review and start with smaller, like easier PRs. So I hope we will have more participation here. And then once we will fix LGTM problem, we will need to start tackling approve problem and start approving faster. I also noticed we have a lot of test-related PRs stuck in LGTM state. And for those, we have less approvers than for regular SIG Node. Like Dawn is not there, for instance, and I don't know what to do with that. I will start pinging people more aggressively, but if you are approver for this area and some PR is assigned to you, please take a look. It's important to keep ball rolling, especially in test area. That's it from me.
Thanks, Sergey, and for the great summary for us to start the weekly SIG Node meeting. And I have the two topics, and the two topics it is as the follow up through the offline email, and also for last time and last couple weeks at the SIG Node meeting, people ask for the who is the new owner about the node problem detector, and also new owner about the state weather, because regular of the Kubernetes release is being blocked by the state weather since David the tiny parameter. So we actually identify new owner, but it's not like there's the only owner. So we also we want to call out and the community, please help on the state weather and the node problem detector. But do we also identify some like the actively identify some owner? So I want to introduce David Porter. I think many people already know David, and he been working on the shutdown design and contribute a lot. And also, so David, do you want to talk about?
Sure. Yeah. Hi everyone. Yeah. So thanks Don for introduction. Yeah, so I mean, I'm happy to be starting to work on C-Advisor. I'm starting to work with David Ashfall a little bit just to kind of figure out how to kind of transition a lot of his work. In the short term, it seems like the biggest thing kind of for Kubernetes itself is to unblock the release. So there's a new C-Advisor release for every Kubernetes release, so we need to make sure and stay on track of that. And then longer term, there are some plans to potentially kind of refactor parts of the kubelet integration with C-Advisor and figure out what to do there. So I'm excited to kind of start diving into this area, and also really excited to get help from the community. I mean, at DIMS we had email threads going, so there's a lot of interest and help from community in general. So yeah, excited to kind of get into this area.
Thanks, David. Well, thanks to both Davids, right?
Thanks both David.
Thanks,
yes.
David Ashfall, for taking care of this for so long, and thanks, David Porter, for picking this up.
Totally. Yeah. In the past, many times I asked David Ashfall, I said, can we take turn? For David always say, he already did before we take care, and he already did. And now because he's moved on, he have the new, still is in open source, but I have a new task. And all of a sudden we realize actually how big it is for us to fail here. So David, thank you for all your contribution to the SIG Node and the Kubernetes community. But James, thank you for recognizing this problem and this big loss and call out the attention. And James, do you also want to share something we've been talk offline through what we are doing? So David, David Porter can also work together, and we can move forward for long-term healthy about the monitoring on the node.
Yeah, so I just want to lay down the problem a little bit. So the main issue here is cAdvisor is both a binary as well as a library. So not all of what is required for the binary is actually is rendered by Kubernetes. Just a subset of it. David and Jordan, David Ashpole and Jordan and I have been working for a while to reduce the footprint of the things that get dragged into Kubernetes through cAdvisor, and we reduced quite a bit. So now the problem becomes, do we want to keep these two in the same repository? Can we put them in two repositories, the library and the binary? And can the library be part of like the Kubernetes SIGs or something like that? So those are the things that we need to explore a little bit. The hard questions will be around, okay, if it is a library and we want to make changes to the library, then how do we test it, right? Having the library and the binary in two different GitHub orgs under two different owners is going to like make the problem even harder. So those are the kind of things that we need to work through. Maybe not in the 120 timeframe. For 120 timeframe, we should just make sure that we update the dependencies like containerd and things like that, and make sure that we have a solid, thing before we do the code freeze. So that's the plan for 120. But 121, we'll try to think a little bit more about how do we test it. How do we test the library if we have two separate repositories and things like that. So that'll be the longer term thing. So I will try to work with David Porter offline and put together something that the two of us can bring it back to this forum for people to chime in, at some point, maybe in a few weeks.
Thanks, James.
Maybe also a good idea.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just saying it may be a good idea to for people who uses cAdvisor as a binary, not as a part of Kubernetes, to speak up and help shape the proposal, like what exactly is needed and how we can move it going forward.
True. Yeah, there's one more flip side to this is David Ashpole had a KEP in progress on how to finally eliminate cAdvisor, I think, and switch to some kube state metrics or something like that. So that is even longer term process that we need to think about. So basically the ask is people who are interested in this problem space, please reach out to David Porter and me, and we can start working together and figure out how to do this right. And David Ashpole has been single-handedly taking care of this for a really long time. So we don't want to do the same mistake again. and even though David Ashpole did a really good job, we don't want to get into the same position where we have like really few people doing heroes work and try to spread the load a little bit.
Yeah, I think that David's intention is not to be the hero. It's just because he is the hero here in the past, because we've been called out to community help on the cAdvisor for a long time. End up, he is the it is the hero, handle all those kind of the painful points that's and releases. So I also want to point out, even today, SIG Node, the couple things effort actually depend on the cAdvisor. Even standalone binary, we do have the cAdvisor E2E test. And the SIG Node, there's some like for the performance measurement and a lot of things we have to run cAdvisor and to measure for example, for the node perf and we build that. That's built by my, also is by my intern, also is the sole people. And after that, hand over, and the community and nobody take over. And so you can call that also hero. But still today have the value measure of the performance for many people. So we call out again. I want to call out, it's not those contributor and individuals want to be the hero. It's just they because we call out, and they have to take those jobs because nobody help. So in the past, and so until right now, because their job, or they're relocated to the new job, and they want to move on, and so that's why we recognize those problems. But it's not like we today recognize problem. Actually, been called out for many times. So next one, I want to introduce our new owner, which they are not new. They already contributed the last many months, continue contribute to Node problem detector after Lantau and I founded that project, and many people using, so they still continue. So let me introduce of the Wasa and also Hanfei. And Wasa, did I pronounce your name correctly? And I know you recently is active on the project and contribute a lot. Do you want to update us about the node problem detector here?
Hey, hi. Thanks for the introduction, Don. So I recently started contributing to the NPD, and as you know, NPD is about detecting problems and adding reporting system stats. So I've been working on adding few more system stats, as well as detecting few more problems from the Docker logs, as well as the general logs. So I'm still working on consolidating all the different issues that we face on the VM instances, like IO errors or the memory related issues. So I'm planning to add in this quarter. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. And Hafi, do you want to say hi to the community? You also help look into some node problem detect issue and plan to contribute more there.
Yeah, hi, I'm Hanfei, and my GitHub name is Forest Code. So you can see my GitHub name on the doc, but not my name. And other than the things that Basha mentioned about like the Docker part and the some memory part, she has been improved. Other things and I have done is about migrate the NPD to the new image release pipeline, and so that people can download the new NPD image from the public registry. And also for some other future direction for NPD, one thing is that it may come out soon about adding NPD on Windows Node. And currently NPD doesn't have ability to detect Windows Node because the system level on Windows is much different with Linux and COS. So there's a lot of work to do there, and also other things like something still in the brainstorming phase that hasn't been in a very deep yet is like support the adding tense ability by NPD to nodes so that pods can be avoid to schedule on certain nodes that have certain conditions. And other things like adding more signals to detect the node failures during the node startup process. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Wasa and Hanfei. I also want to mention that besides those two contribute to the, from Google side, contribute to node problem detector. Before we also have the Xuewen and contribute hugely, and the architecture. The main re-architecture point we did, which is also what the current doing, it is remove the node problem detector, the dependency on the Kube API server, so that you can spot off the problem even API server is not available. And so this is really, really useful feature for us. And so I don't want to share. We actually, I think about when we have the architecture, I invited the Xuewei to talk to the community. I believe we do have the doc shared, and we also have like the record saved somewhere. If people interested on those kind of things, and we can reshare of those design doc again. So that's all. Any question?
Hey, John, I have a question. You may already answer it, but so basically, when some customers use MPD, they also deploy their own MPD in the pod. Are we planning to resolve that issue in the long run?
I don't understand what you say. And customer is up to them. We are not unified everybody's NPD design version, right? But that one thing is
right. The reason.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I want to clarify a little bit. So because the MPD today is not extensive, right? So it's not so we cannot extend, customer cannot extend it to support their events or messaging. So that's why. So basically, if customer wants also to use MPD to detect their own customized messaging or events, they are doing that themselves. So my main question is, do we plan to extend the capability of MPD to be more extensible and support those customer scenarios, so that they don't need to, customer don't need to do their own?
Okay, I just want to say, from day one, and NPD design is extensible. So we basically is the well designed. Customer can plug into. The customer could be like the each vendor, so they could introduce their own problem detector. So but it is up to each vendor or user about the node problem detector decided their product and issue they want to depend on the node problem detector detects. Taking GKE as example, I know GKE today publish all those node problem detector to open source, contribute back to open source. But I do know a lot of people didn't publish it, and then they keep their own version. And but by design, we did do this. We allow those things, and there's no goal because the different of the operating system, different distro, different version of the kernel, they may have the different problem. Different version of the container runtime also maybe have their own problem. So from day one, when I design this one, I ask engineer make that extensible, and so you can plug into your own production issues there. So there's no goal for we want to say okay one single set of the problem here.
Awesome, thanks.
Thanks, Ning, for the good question. And any other question? Otherwise, for the time checking, I want to move to next topic.
So there is some work happening on addressing test failures on NPD, and Morgan and a few other people doing a great job of cleaning it up, but there are still failures. So if you have energy to help with the CI group, please do so. Thank you.
Thanks, Sergey. And also, please, could you CC to the WhatsApp and the Hefe for those NPD failure there? Thanks.
Oh, absolutely. I can do that if you're interested. Thank you.
Okay, let's move to next topic. Eric, do you want to update the pod level usage?
Yeah, exactly. So I made a PR a year ago as a vendor, and it was kind of a nice to have that I thought people would need. And now I'm kind of on the other side where I actually need it for myself. So basically much of the visibility and kind of usage statistics are assuming that what you would do is you would go through all the containers that someone is using for their namespace and adding them up, and never considering instead pod C group. And when, first of all, pod is always going to be more accurate than the sum of containers. If you use a solution that does sandboxing, this is a huge issue where it's a very significantly difference in what the pod C group will show versus individual container C groups. So based on that, as a user, I want to be able to accurately account for the usage that a pod takes on the system. And to facilitate doing that, I looked at the metric/resource endpoint provided by Kubelet. And they go through and already expose container level stats and everything else. They already loop over all the pods and everything else. It's just a matter of output the pod level C group information, and then go ahead and sure, you can output the container ones as well, but I won't scrape that. That's not interesting. For me, the pod is the most useful thing that is missing and necessary. So I rebased and sent a PR for this late last week. And to me, it seems non-controversial. I hope it's not, but if it is, I just want eyes on it because I really need it and would love it to get into 120. So any feedback, if this isn't the right mechanism, there's a different mechanism. That's kind of where I'm at, and I'm just, the request is for feedback on it, whether it be online now if people have thoughts, or otherwise to just comment on the PR. Related, I know that Clayton, I believe there is a KEP around pod level resource stuff in general from an accounting standpoint. So maybe this is somewhat related to that. Maybe I'm helping him out by getting one of his PRs out of the way for that cap. I'm not sure, but either way, I want this, and I hope it's not controversial.
I like your PR, and I do think about we need the pod level, and not just the. I totally agree with the pod level, maybe more accurate because the container die, and then you restart the container, and you only measure newly created of the C group, the resource usage, but there's the certain slab usage goes to the parent, which is goes to the pod level. So this is when have the more accurate measurement, obviously for memory, and also so we could do more, like the accounting start can help us to do the CPU. So I personally like looking forward to this for a long time, and I think the David Dashboard is here, and he may remember when he first joined my team, and I mentioned to the black hierarchy of the C group layout from the original plant C group or under like the different level, and then we have the parent C group over years. So please share your concern if you have concern. If you have any disagreement. Eric, thanks for bringing this to the SIG Node, and we can carry on for the offline with your PR. Next one is the conformance testing of the node proxy endpoints. Ryan, do you want to?
Hello. Yes, I'm new to SIG Node's meeting, so thanks for having me. I'll drop a note in chat to a hackmd file if you want to open that. I actually have the expert that worked on this on the call, Stephen Haywood. Stephen, you want to explain through the arguments that we have?
Hi. In the document, if you're able to follow along, or if you're able to share it on the screen, we're working with the SIG architecture and work with the conformance sub-project around conformance for Kubernetes across the board. So we've got a number of endpoints that we're dealing with as part of 120 around proxy. So we've got some endpoints that we've started looking at for node proxy, and there is issues around, at the moment there's a generic redirect that's happening for the base API endpoints, that once it's removed, at the moment, as part of my own internal build of Kate's, it's returning a 404 error. Basically, there's nothing there. So I'm just wondering, is there anything suitable that is likely to actually be there that is able to be tested, or is it just not a feasible endpoint that needs to be looked at as part of conformance? And the second request is around there's node proxy with an appropriate path, and I've already done some initial checks where I've been able to get some responses using the config Z or metrics, but the problem is that they're actually backed by kubelet, and as part of one of the links that I've got at the top of the document around the current conformance requirements, we're not allowed to use kubelet directly. So it would be great to find out if there's a way that the node could have a standard endpoint that is able to be used as a health check that's not directly relying on kubelet. But I'm just not too sure about the super internals about how the node's doing a lot of things, where I can actually, as part of doing the stuff with pod proxy and service proxy, I've been able to looking at getting a custom pod behind the scenes to be able to use as part of the conformance test. I'm just not too sure what's able to be part of GA long term. So it's just trying to get some extra feedback. This will probably have to get pushed out to 121, the next release, most likely, because we've only got 2 weeks to go. But it's really getting some extra eyes on it.
Yeah. So I can feel a little bit the background context. So those the proxy endpoint, it is introduced really long time ago. That it is at a very earlier stage of the Kubernetes, and folks worry about how to debug the system. And that time we haven't really open discussing serverless, but already a lot of people have that idea and that thought. So we introduced those proxy endpoint. Most it is try to expose some of the information on the node and try to improve some of the node level debugability. But that's the original reason. And over time, obviously, people using that for the different reason. But we've been long time back and later for the architecture and also for the security reason, we want to deprecate those endpoints. So, but we also know the customer, some user may still using those kind of things and have the automation built around those things. So maybe the team of Claire actually in the past is from the SIG Node, and also the GK team is representative of the node level of the security. I remember he looked into those endpoints and come up with some plan to deprecate. So maybe we can carry off the discussing from that one to can you send an email? I can share with you his email. So maybe through the Slack and ping him, Team Claire, and ask him share his old source point. We want to deprecate that for a while, for the security reason even.
Yep, that's okay. Just wanting to just get a little bit more context on those endpoints, and I can understand the part of the reasons around wanting to deprecate the endpoints, but it's just hopefully getting a solid answer. So thanks very much.
Thanks.
If we can get a solid answer that we will deprecate those, it will also help us to know how to move forward, and we can actually remove them from eligibility for conformance, which would also give us a better indication of where we are with conformance coverage overall for case. So yeah, that would be nice if we can get a clear answer on whether we deprecate it or not, and then we can mark them.
Yeah, thanks. So I think there's many ways to move forward. At least for conform test to move forward, we could just call out for conformed, and this by default it is not support. We can introduce the feature get and disable this by default, but the customer still could be using not conformed Kubernetes if they have the dependency. So there's the many way to. We also can call out this publicly, say we are going to deprecate and announce this deprecation and give some times and to the community, so the user can prepare to move and to get ready their automation to remove the dependency on those endpoints. Then after time, then we can remove those dependency. So that's why I suggest to talk to the team of Claire, because he have that plan to remove many dependency for the security region in the past. So we can start from there, but we definitely can move forward, I believe. And I'm not sure I answered your question a lot here.
Thank you very much. I think that's helpful, Stephen. I think we can move forward with that.
Thanks.
Thanks. Next topic, Sergey, do you want to talk about the?
Yeah, there is a small PR. It's a new one, and it introduces a new header for all the probes, namely accept with the ****. I'm sorry. This is similar to what curl is doing by default, so I don't see any problems with that. The only question for me is that this PR introduces 11 bytes for every liveness probe, and I wonder if anybody has experience with the performance test and understanding how much this may affect high density nodes. Or who can we ask to clarify, or like to get some feedback?
Looks like nobody. At least I didn't look at that PR. I also don't look at what's the problem that I try to address. So we may need a follow-up offline and to say what, at least I need to figure out what's the problem and try to solve here.
Okay, makes sense. Do you want to go do it now? I think we're short on time, so we can do it offline. Or I can quickly introduce the problem.
I think the things is you just mentioned that a small PR, right? So maybe we can move to offline.
Okay.
Yeah. So next one you want to?
Yeah, I wanted to remind everybody about timeline. The enhancement timeline is coming up, and for every enhancement that is approved for 120, we need to have code merged by code freeze, and we need to create at least a placeholder for documentation. Ideally, like, the documentation needs to be updated fully. So if you own one of this enhancement, please try to move it forward and react on release managers pings. I'm curious about specifically CRI alpha to beta migration. If Mrunal on the call, it would be great to, yeah.
Yes, Sergey. So, Sasha just opened a PR. So mainly we need the seccomp changes. I'll paste a link to that. And once that is merged, Mike Brown and I'll open PRs to clean up comments and documentation, and then it should be good to go. Just a sec.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I just wondered, like, if we progression with Docker shim removal, and we said that CRI graduation is one of the requirements to do this deprecation, then we need to make sure that it fits into 120.
Yep, of course. So I put a link in chat. I can add it to the doc as well.
Thank you. And I started marking enhancement that was merged with the green in this enhancement tracking document that we had before, feature health check. So if you want to update your own PR, like your own enhancement, just please do it. So you'll have a clear picture, and then by 120, we'll have a understanding what to do next. And then last question I wanted to ask is some features were marked as desired to be deprecated, like specifically like dynamic kubelet config. And I'm not sure about the process, like if deprecation is also needs to be approved and we already missed the deadline, or it's something that you can do now and at least mark some features as deprecated. So going forward, you can start removing them.
Any other suggestion, comment?
I can follow up with the release team about what they think about the process and bring it back for the next SIG Node meeting, if nobody has the context here.
Thanks, Sergey.
Okay, thank you. And I believe there are a few more topics about feature requests that fall in the agenda.
So next one is the typology of while scheduling.
Hi, Don. Swati here. So we have kind of a question in relation to topology-aware scheduling, particularly with where we place the topology node resource topology CRD definition. Just to refresh everyone's memory, we have two KEPs in question. One is the scheduler plugin KEP, which is proposing that a topology-aware scheduler plugin be in Kubernetes in tree. And the other component is the exporter, which exposes per node CRD information corresponding to its hardware. So the main glue between these components is the CRD API definition. So the scheduler plugin needs to import the API definition, and again, NFD needs to do that. We had a couple of ARs in relation to NFD, what is its release cadence and things like that. We followed up on that. So NFD's release cadence is ad hoc. And the other, so basically we proposed three options. One was have this API definition in NFD, but that was not viable option because of circular dependencies. Another option was have it in an external repository, say in Kubernetes SIG. So I had a conversation with actually DIMS in relation to that. He recommended, again, that has issues because of circular dependencies, because if Kubernetes is trying to import the API definition, and then we need the API definition to import Kubernetes. So that leaves us with the only viable option of having it in staging in Kubernetes. We have come across some solutions which did that, but I wanted to kind of get communities' perspective on that, how they feel about it, and if this is a viable option we can go ahead with.
Teams, looks like this is the common problem for
there is no good solution at this point. usually staging is for pushing code out from Kubernetes, but here we are introducing new code that is going to go live in staging because we need to use it in both the in-tree scheduler, and it is also needed by things that are outside Kubernetes. So I don't have any other solution at this point, but I can talk to Jordan and we can think about a few things. But at this point, we should just go with the pattern that is already there and not try to invent something new. So I'm okay with starting with staging.
Perfect. That sounds good.
For me, list the things I will think about staging, giving like the scope, the purpose we are using staging. But it looks like that's I agree with you, Swati. That's so sad. That's the only feasible solution. Sounds like.
Yeah,
but I noticed.
I had a talk with Nikita also this morning about like, can we have when API server starts up, can it pick up CRDs from somewhere and try to come up with some other solution? But anything that we can think of is not going to be for 120. It's going to be for later. So at this point, even SIG storage, we ended up having some definitions, especially with if I remember PVCs and stuff like that, ended up in tree from SIG storage as well. So the first question I asked Swati was, does the inbuilt scheduler need to import this, right? And is it going to be on by default? So the answer was, it is going to be imported, but it's going to be off by default, at least for the short term.
That's right.
So yeah, if the answer was a little bit different, then I would have said, just go away in terms of like, open it as a separate repository. But the key here is that it needs to be built into this kube scheduler, and there is just no other way around it.
Okay. So,
like technically speaking, again, there is an option of making it out of tree, but given that there are limitations within Kubernetes itself, that is leading to the problem that we are trying to address. Just probably makes sense to do it in Kubernetes in tree. So I think what I'm hearing is, let's go ahead with staging at this point, and then if things change, that there is a mechanism of doing something like this in some other way, we would go ahead and do it that way.
So one last question, Swati, is there a KEP already?
Yeah, so we have two KEPs for the scheduler plugin and for the exporter component, which will be in NFT. But now that we've had this conversation, it might need a few modifications to kind of seal the idea that it is going to be in staging.
Yeah, so let's update those KEPs and then ask for approvals, I think.
Perfect. That's great. Thanks, Dims.
Any other concern and suggestion? Okay, then let's start with the staging and move forward. But I saw the community started to talk about this topic, right? So the code location, or maybe I just misread the title. I saw there's the email back and forth between people and talk about this topic.
Are you referring to when I had asked for reviews, or is it a
No.
new email thread that I'm not aware of?
No, I think about this kind of common problem, like the circular dependency for Kubernetes today.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I saw some email, and maybe I just misread, and because I didn't read the detail. Okay.
So one other thing you can do, Swati, is just summarize the conversation here, send it to both SIG scheduler and SIG Node. So there is a track record of what we ended up deciding and who needs to be involved, right? And the problem statement as such, that there is a circular dependency and there is no good solution to it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, James.
Thanks, Swati. And yeah, thanks, Dims, for the suggestion. So again, topology manager scope. There's the question, and I think this is there any, Alexa?
Yeah, hey, Chris here. So one thing is just a reminder for review. I mentioned that last week, so no more about that maybe. I'm just worried if we can fit in the code freeze. Just this is the reason why I am reminding so often. And my question is about issue tracker on Kubernetes enhancement, because I know that we made one for the memory manager because there was a new cap, and this is the whole enhancement. And for the topology manager scope is a feature of topology manager. In general, there is a topology manager tracker. So my question is if we should have a separate tracker for the scope. Thanks, Sergey, for asking that also in the topology manager tracker for the Kikis delivery service. But maybe someone here will know the answer. If not, I will just wait for the
in the past, as we've added new features to the topology manager, we've just been reusing that existing tracker or that existing issue to track it, and just adding the new PRs, and then they've been making sure that the PRs had the correct milestones on it. My guess is that because of the nature of the change for the scope, we can probably just continue doing that. Whereas the memory manager one was a much bigger change. It was its own hint provider and all that. And it wasn't just a change to the topology manager itself. So that's why I think it made sense to have its own tracking.
Okay, so topology manager don't have to have a tracker for v120 if we want to up there?
Not for the scope stuff, I don't think. No, it already has the milestone for 120 on that PR, and that PR is linked in the existing topology manager enhancement issue.
Okay,
and I think that's enough for that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's all. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. We normally just up to the feature owner decided they need a separate tracker or not, and the tracker is just help our communication and for the tracking our progress on those features. So that's why. So there's no strong preference unless we think about it's harder for community or harder for the group to understand the progress, or there's the big change. So it's just like the most of it is like the feature owner make the decision. At least that's in the past. But sometimes we may suggest to have the separate tracker if it's complicated or it is harder to track. And there's the obvious enhancement, but we do a lot of things. So it's just, I believe it's a little bit based on our own judgment here. Share. And I saw your PR, and Derek, it is on it. So, and I saw the Derek is review all the things. Let us know if you need more help on this one.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so far I think about it's on track. Thanks. Next one, Francisco. Do you want to talk about the pod resource PRs?
We can't hear you, Francesco, if you're speaking.
Oh, I think that I misread this one. That's Nick.
So I can speak through this. I don't know. It might be some audio issues with Francesco's. So this is in relation to pod resource API. As part of the Kubernetes enhancement proposal, we had 3 components of it. One was introducing the topology information, CPU IDs. The second one was introducing get allocated resource, and the third component is watch implementation. So we've done, kind of completed the first two parts. The third part is work in progress, and it might not be able to get into 1.20 the code freeze. So we are trying to figure out what to do in this situation. Like, do we modify the cap, or do we just capture it somewhere that this part of the cap is being addressed through this PR? So it's just kind of a process question.
Anyone want to comment? Otherwise, I will share my personal performance preference here. So I personally don't want those processes to block your effort. And but once we are done, I want the cap keep it is up to latest status. That's just my personal preference, because a lot of the documentation and a lot of things will reference back to the cap as the source of the truth. So, but also during the development time, right? So the cap is using for the developer communication and review and all those kind of things. So we also don't want that cap process to slow down your progress. So basically, I want to, if later we finally have the watch endpoint finished, then we update that to reflect what it is the status there. This is my personal preference here. Please, everyone, share your. I believe there's the formal process and even defined. And
so like if so with the two components that we're proposing, we keep the cap as it is with the three components. That's what you're saying? And eventually that watch will be like published, and based on that we'd update cap as well.
Yeah,
does that sound okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe just clarify that watch interface is planned for the next release for 1.21.
Yeah. So yeah, just that component we won't be able to cover it for in this code freeze for 1.20.
Any other suggestion and other comment on this one? So Swati, maybe you just send a PR to update that to cap, but we keep cap as is. So basically it's like the approved, and it's just as another enhancement, and make that enhancement PR pending there to keep that is update to align with the implementation detail and the progress. So make that is up to date. I think at the end, when we have this and the merged of the cap status represent current status, that's the best.
Yeah, makes sense.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, we only have we finish all our topic today for today, and any other thing, people, we have the 1 minute left. Any other topic people want to, or some issue people want to get our attention?
Hey, a quick one. So that PR I pasted earlier from Sasha, right? So that's changing how SecComp works. But now we have a chicken and egg, because if we change this, then the runtimes are not updated. Like containerd tests will fail immediately. So we are thinking of doing it in 2 steps. We first just add the new field. We update containerd, we update cryo, and then we make another PR to kind of remove the old field. So right now it's just marking it as deprecated. So any thoughts on that approach or concerns, I guess?
you for a heads up.
I don't have much concern. I know that sometimes you just have to take some steps.
Okay, all right. Okay, then we'll try to get that merged. Don, if you can take a look as well.
Yeah. So no, you can always ping me if you want. Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. And we have a great of the meeting today. we talk about a lot of topics, and looking forward next week. Oh, we canceled next week. Sorry, next week we can. I think that I proposed to cancel it, and if anyone have some concern, let us know. But the currently plan is next week, next Tuesday. It is the voting day, so that's why I plan to cancel, so people can plan. But please, if you have the topic you want to discuss, get attention, always ping us through the Slack. And send us email to the Kubernetes SIG Node group. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, John.